Picture a country smaller than West Virginia with fewer people than Texas, yet somehow managing to be the world's second largest food exporter. That country is the Netherlands, and in 2025, it's still breaking every rule about what small nations should be capable of. While most people think of windmills and tulips, this tiny European powerhouse is quietly dominating global trade, pioneering climate technology, and wielding influence that would make countries 10 times its size jealous. How does this tiny nation of 17.5 million feed half the world? The answer requires looking beyond the obvious and examining what appears to be a geographic impossibility. The numbers that don't add up. When you look at a map of Europe, the Netherlands occupies roughly the same amount of space as the state of Maryland. You could drive across the entire country in about 3 hours if traffic cooperates. Yet somehow this postage stamp of a nation consistently outperforms massive countries that dwarf it in every conceivable way. In 2025, the Netherlands is the world's 5th largest exporter, despite having only 0.1% of global land area. The raw numbers make this geographic impossibility even more striking. The Netherlands now houses 17.5 million people crammed into just 41,543 square kilometers of land. At roughly 422 people per square kilometer, it's denser than Germany at 233 or the UK at 275, yet it out-exports them both. The Netherlands packs more humans into each square kilometer than countries like India or Bangladesh, yet maintains one of the highest standards of living anywhere in the world. But population density tells only part of this impossible story. This means a country smaller than most American states moves more goods across international borders than economic powerhouses like Japan, which has 7 times the population, or the United Kingdom, which once controlled a quarter of the world's land mass. France, with nearly 4 times as many people and significantly more territory, exports less than the Netherlands. Italy, Spain, and even India all fall behind this tiny European nation in total export volume. The contradiction becomes even more absurd when you consider what the Netherlands lacks compared to these export competitors. Russia controls vast oil reserves, enormous forests, and mineral deposits that stretch across continents. The Netherlands has almost no natural resources beyond natural gas, which they are rapidly phasing out. China manufactures products for nearly every country on Earth from massive industrial complexes. The Netherlands has to import most raw materials because they simply do not exist within their borders. This geographic impossibility extends beyond just exports into nearly every measure of global influence. The Netherlands hosts more international organizations per capita than any other country. Their currency, before adopting the euro, was among the most stable in the world despite the country having no gold mines or oil wells to back it up. Dutch companies control supply chains that span continents, even though the Netherlands could fit inside Texas more than 16 times over. Their universities consistently rank among the world's best for research output per capita, despite having a fraction of the resources available to institutions in larger countries. Understanding how the Netherlands achieved this level of dominance requires examining 4 specific areas where they have managed to create competitive advantages that should be impossible given their geographic constraints. These 4 pillars support an economic structure that generates influence far beyond what any reasonable person would expect from such a small country. Each pillar represents a different way the Dutch have turned geographic limitations into strategic advantages, creating systems that allow them to compete with and often outperform countries many times their size. The first pillar involves agricultural production that defies every rule about farming and land use. The second centers on logistics and trade networks that make the Netherlands essential to global commerce despite having no natural advantages for shipping or transportation. The third focuses on technological innovation that has made Dutch companies indispensable to industries they have no geographic reason to dominate. The fourth encompasses urban planning and sustainability innovations that countries worldwide now copy, despite the Netherlands having some of the most challenging geography for human settlement anywhere in Europe. What makes this dominance particularly remarkable is that the Netherlands has not just maintained these advantages since 2020, but has actually expanded them in several key areas. While other countries struggle with supply chain disruptions, climate challenges, and economic uncertainty, the Dutch have managed to strengthen their position in global markets. Their export growth has outpaced that of much larger competitors. Their technological companies have become more essential to global supply chains, not less. Their agricultural output has increased despite using less land and fewer resources than ever before. The sustainability of this overpowered status raises questions that challenge conventional thinking about national competitiveness. How does a country with no room to expand continue growing its influence? How do you maintain technological leadership when you have to import nearly every raw material needed for manufacturing? How do you feed the world when you have less farmland per capita than almost any other country? How do you dominate global logistics when your entire country could fit inside the cargo area of the world's largest container ships? These questions matter because the Dutch model represents something unprecedented in modern economics. Traditional theories suggest that countries need either vast natural resources, huge populations, or extensive territory to achieve global dominance. The Netherlands has none of these advantages, yet consistently outperforms countries that have all three. Their success challenges basic assumptions about what drives national competitiveness in the modern world. The mechanisms behind this geographic impossibility become clear when you examine each pillar of Dutch dominance in detail. The first area where the Netherlands achieves the impossible starts with agriculture, where they have managed to become the world's second largest food exporter despite having almost no farmland, feeding the world from a postage stamp. The scale of this agricultural transformation becomes clear when you examine the infrastructure that makes it possible. The Netherlands now operates over 24,000 acres of crops within artificial greenhouse environments, an area exceeding twice the size of Manhattan. These structures represent the most advanced agricultural facilities anywhere in the world, utilizing precisely controlled climates, LED lighting systems, and sophisticated pest control methods that minimize chemical pesticide use. The greenhouses often recycle carbon dioxide generated from natural gas combustion, creating closed-loop systems that maximize efficiency while reducing environmental impact. Dutch greenhouse farming techniques produce yields that would be impossible under traditional outdoor cultivation. Dutch greenhouses yield as much from 1 acre as 10 acres of conventional farmland, using 1/56 the water per pound of tomatoes compared to global averages. This efficiency stems from precision agriculture systems that monitor soil conditions, nutrient levels, and plant health in real time. These systems adjust water delivery, lighting, and temperature continuously to optimize growing conditions for maximum yield. Vertical farming techniques have expanded dramatically since 2020, allowing the Netherlands to increase production without expanding land use. These multi-story growing facilities stack crops in controlled environments that can produce food year-round regardless of weather conditions outside. LED lighting systems provide exactly the light spectrum each crop needs for optimal growth, while automated systems handle planting, monitoring, and harvesting with minimal human intervention. The result is agricultural production that continues 24 hours a day throughout the entire year. The specific crops produced through these advanced methods showcase achievements that seem impossible for a Northern European country. Dutch tomato production now rivals that of Mexico, a country with vastly more suitable climate and farmland for tomato cultivation. The Netherlands produces tomatoes year-round in quantities that supply much of Europe, despite having a climate that would naturally support tomato growth for only a few months annually. Similarly, Dutch potato exports dwarf those of major farming nations with extensive potato growing regions, demonstrating how controlled environments can outperform even ideal natural conditions. Agricultural research institutions form the backbone of these technological advances, with Wageningen University and Research Center serving as the global leader in agricultural science and innovation. Dutch agricultural companies invest heavily in research and development, producing hundreds of new vegetable varieties and seeds annually. These research efforts focus on developing crops that can thrive in controlled environments while maximizing yield per square meter of growing space. The value of Dutch agricultural innovation becomes clear when examining the seed industry, where Dutch companies dominate over 1/3 of global trade in vegetable seeds. These seeds represent extraordinary engineering achievements that concentrate years of research into products that command premium prices worldwide. The return on investment for these seeds far exceeds what traditional farming methods could achieve, even with unlimited land availability. Climate-controlled environments allow the Netherlands to produce crops that should be impossible to grow in Northern Europe. Dutch greenhouses successfully cultivate tropical fruits, exotic vegetables, and warm weather crops throughout the winter months, when outdoor temperatures drop below freezing. These facilities maintain perfect growing conditions regardless of external weather, enabling production schedules that ignore natural seasons entirely. The result is fresh produce availability that supports year-round exports to markets across Europe and beyond. In 2024, Dutch agricultural exports hit €128.9 billion, a 5% rise, making it the world's second largest exporter, behind the United States. The Dutch economy earned approximately €47.4 billion from these exports, with €42.3 billion stemming from Dutch-made products and €5.2 billion from re-exports of agricultural goods produced elsewhere. These figures place the Netherlands firmly ahead of countries with vastly more farmland and seemingly better natural conditions for agriculture. The economic impact of agricultural exports contributes over €100 billion annually to the Dutch economy, representing one of the largest sources of export revenue for the country. This agricultural sector employs advanced technology companies, research institutions, logistics providers, and financial services that support the entire supply chain from seed development to final delivery. The multiplier effect of agricultural exports creates economic activity throughout the Dutch economy, supporting jobs and generating tax revenue far beyond the farming sector itself. Agricultural dominance serves as the foundation for broader Dutch economic power because it demonstrates their ability to maximize output from minimal inputs. The same principles that allow the Netherlands to feed much of Europe from tiny greenhouse facilities apply to other sectors where they have achieved outsized influence. Efficiency, innovation, and strategic use of technology enable the Dutch to compete with much larger countries across multiple industries. This agricultural success connects directly to another pillar of Dutch economic power that operates on an even larger scale. Moving all these agricultural products, along with massive volumes of goods from around the world, requires logistics infrastructure that can handle cargo flows rivaling those of entire nations. The gateway to 500 million customers, the Port of Rotterdam handles 436 million tons of cargo annually, more than Europe's next two largest ports combined, Antwerp and Le Havre. This single Dutch port facility moves more cargo than entire countries like Norway, Finland, or Ireland manage to process through all their ports collectively, making it not just Europe's largest port, but one of the top 10 ports worldwide. Rotterdam's cargo volume demonstrates how concentrated efficiency can outperform distributed systems across much larger geographic areas. Rotterdam has maintained its position as Europe's dominant port despite intensifying competition from Hamburg, Antwerp, and other major European facilities. In 2024, the port experienced a 2.8% increase in container volumes, marking the first uptick in 3 years, with consumer goods and food products driving growth. This expansion occurred while many European ports struggled with reduced shipping volumes and supply chain disruptions. The infrastructure developments supporting Rotterdam's continued dominance involve massive construction projects that expand the port's capacity for handling the largest container ships in the world. The Maasvlakte 2 project, completed in 2013, added 1,000 hectares of port area, including 2 deep-sea quay walls capable of accommodating ultra-large container vessels. Currently, container terminals in Prince's Ameliehaven are undergoing expansion that will increase throughput by 4 million 20-foot equivalent units when completed by 2026. Rotterdam World Gateway represents another major expansion project, adding approximately 45 hectares and 920 meters of quay wall to boost capacity by 1.8 million containers annually. The river network connecting Rotterdam to European markets creates an inland shipping system that reaches 500 million consumers across the continent. The Rhine Delta provides navigable waterways extending deep into Germany, Belgium, France, and Switzerland, with connections reaching Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Ukraine through continuous inland shipping routes. These waterways enable cheap river barges to transport goods from Rotterdam's port facilities directly to consumers and businesses throughout Europe without requiring expensive overland transportation. The Netherlands operates the most water-dependent logistics network in Europe, with inland waterways carrying 40% of the country's total freight volume. Approximately 6,000 ships navigate Dutch rivers and channels annually, representing nearly 80% of all vessels sailing inland waterways within the European continent. This water-based transportation system provides cost advantages that land-based logistics cannot match, allowing goods to move from Rotterdam to major European cities at transportation costs significantly lower than trucking or rail alternatives. Rail and highway connections radiating from Rotterdam enable cargo to reach major European cities within 24 hours of arrival at the port. The Batuwerut Freight Railway links Rotterdam directly to Germany and connects with networks reaching the Ruhr Valley Industrial Region. Railroads from Rotterdam can transport cargo to cities like Berlin, Paris, and Milan in under 8 hours, while most continental destinations become accessible by rail within a single day. Rotterdam processes over 90% of Europe's seaborne oil and ranks third globally in refined petroleum exports. 5 major oil refineries operate within the port area, transforming imported crude oil into refined products for export to European and global markets. The Netherlands has become one of the top 3 global exporters of refined petroleum products, competing directly with India and the United States while surpassing traditional oil superpowers like Russia, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia. The re-export business represents perhaps the most striking example of how Rotterdam creates value through strategic positioning rather than domestic production. The Netherlands imports massive quantities of goods from Asia and America, specifically to export them immediately to other European countries. 1/5 of all fresh fruit and vegetables imported into Europe from outside the continent pass through Dutch ports and distribution networks. This re-export model allows the Netherlands to capture value from global trade flows without producing the underlying goods, generating economic activity and employment from facilitating commerce between other regions. The economic impact of Rotterdam alone accounts for more than 8% of the entire Netherlands' gross domestic product, illustrating how a single port facility can drive national economic performance. This contribution extends beyond direct port operations to include logistics services, financial services, insurance, and countless other businesses that support international trade flows. The multiplier effect of Rotterdam's operations creates employment and economic activity throughout the Dutch economy, from truck drivers and warehouse workers to international commodity traders and shipping financiers. Rotterdam's dominance in European logistics creates strategic advantages that extend far beyond transportation and shipping. Countries throughout Europe depend on Dutch logistics networks to access global markets, giving the Netherlands influence over European trade policies and economic decisions. When supply chain disruptions occur, European businesses often find themselves dependent on Dutch logistics expertise and infrastructure to maintain their operations. The logistics infrastructure supporting Rotterdam connects directly to another area where the Netherlands achieves impossible dominance. The same efficiency and strategic thinking that created Europe's most important port also enabled Dutch companies to become indispensable to industries that most people would never associate with this small European country. While Rotterdam moves physical goods across continents, Dutch technological innovation has positioned the Netherlands as the gatekeeper for something far more valuable than cargo containers: the machines that run the world. The most advanced technology on Earth gets manufactured in Veldhoven, a small Dutch town that most people could not locate on a map, even if their lives depended on it. This unremarkable municipality houses the headquarters of ASML, a company that has quietly become the most valuable technology corporation in Europe and one of the most strategically important businesses anywhere in the world. ASML's market capitalization has increased roughly 5 times since 2019, reaching valuations that represent over 1/3 of the entire Netherlands' gross domestic product. ASML controls something that no other company on Earth can replicate: the ability to manufacture extreme ultraviolet lithography machines capable of producing the world's most advanced computer chips. These EUV machines represent the only technology that can create semiconductors with features small enough to power everything from smartphones to artificial intelligence systems to the most sophisticated military equipment. Without ASML's machines, companies like Taiwan's Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, Intel, and Samsung could not produce the cutting-edge processors that drive modern technology. This monopoly position makes ASML indispensable to every major technology company and government seeking to maintain competitiveness in the digital economy. The engineering complexity behind each EUV machine defies comprehension for most people outside the semiconductor industry. Every machine contains over 100,000 individual parts assembled with precision that approaches the theoretical limits of human manufacturing capability. The machines weigh approximately 180 tons, roughly equivalent to the size of a double-decker bus, yet operate with tolerances measured in fractions of atomic dimensions. The mirrors inside these machines achieve smoothness levels, where imperfections measure no larger than the distance grass grows in a single millisecond. The entire lithography process occurs within a complete vacuum because EUV light gets absorbed by virtually every substance, including air molecules. Each ASML machine costs over $300 million, making them among the most expensive manufacturing equipment ever created. The price tag reflects not just the sophisticated technology, but also the extraordinary logistics required to build and deliver these systems. Transporting a single EUV machine requires 20 trucks and 3 Boeing 747 jumbo jets to move all the components from ASML's facilities to customer locations around the world. The assembly process at customer sites takes months of careful installation and calibration before the machines become operational. The manufacturing process for each machine involves approximately 1,000 workers and requires coordination among over 5,000 supplier partnerships spanning the entire globe. Components arrive at ASML's facilities from dozens of countries, reflecting supply chain complexity that rivals major aerospace or automotive manufacturing programs. The lead time for delivering a complete EUV system often exceeds 18 months from order placement to final installation. This extended timeline creates waiting lists that force semiconductor manufacturers to plan their production capacity years in advance, giving ASML enormous influence over global chip manufacturing schedules. ASML spent $6.5 billion on research and development over 17 years to perfect EUV technology before releasing its first commercially viable machine in 2017. This long-term investment demonstrates the patience and resources required to achieve technological breakthroughs that create entire industries. The company's willingness to invest billions without immediate returns reflects Dutch innovation culture that prioritizes long-term technological leadership over short-term profits. ASML's monopoly on EUV technology has transformed the company into a kingmaker in the intensifying technological competition between the United States and China. Both superpowers depend entirely on Dutch machines to manufacture the semiconductors that power their most advanced military systems, artificial intelligence capabilities, and strategic technologies. The United States government has pressured the Netherlands to restrict ASML from selling its most advanced EUV machines to Chinese customers, despite China representing approximately 30% of ASML's total revenue. These export controls demonstrate how technological dependencies can become tools of international pressure and economic warfare. ASML employs over 40,000 people globally, making it one of the largest private employers in the Netherlands, while maintaining operations across Europe, Asia, and North America. The company's customer base includes every major semiconductor manufacturer worldwide, from Taiwan's TSMC to South Korea's Samsung to American companies like Intel and Micron Technology. This customer diversity creates revenue streams that span multiple continents and economic sectors, reducing ASML's dependence on any single market or geographic region. The technical specifications of ASML's EUV machines showcase engineering achievements that push the boundaries of physical possibility. These systems create features on silicon wafers measuring down to 1/150,000th the width of a human hair, enabling transistor densities that seemed impossible just decades ago. The precision required for this level of manufacturing exceeds what most industries consider achievable. Yet ASML has made such accuracy routine through years of research and development investment. ASML's market dominance extends beyond just EUV technology to encompass approximately 83% of the global lithography market across all technology generations. This broader market control ensures that even companies not using the most advanced EUV systems often depend on Dutch technology for their semiconductor manufacturing needs. The company's historical development traces back to 1984 as a joint venture between Dutch electronics giant Philips and ASM International, demonstrating how Dutch innovation ecosystems can nurture companies that eventually achieve global technology leadership. ASML's success reflects the Netherlands' broader innovation ecosystem that combines advanced research institutions, strategic government policies, and private sector investment in long-term technology development. The same systematic approach that enabled agricultural innovations and logistics dominance has created technological capabilities that make Dutch companies essential to global supply chains. This technological mastery represents just one example of how the Netherlands has learned to engineer solutions that overcome seemingly impossible natural limitations. punching above their weight class. This systematic approach to maximizing influence creates diplomatic leverage that countries 20 times larger struggle to match. The Netherlands holds permanent seats and leadership positions in international organizations that amplify its voice far beyond what population statistics would predict. Within the European Union, Dutch officials regularly chair critical committees and working groups despite representing less than 4% of the Union's total population. The country's influence within EU decision-making structures often exceeds that of much larger member states because Dutch negotiators combine deep technical expertise with pragmatic approaches that build consensus among competing national interests. NATO provides another arena where Dutch influence far exceeds what 17 million people should theoretically command within an alliance that includes the United States, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. The Netherlands contributes specialized capabilities to NATO operations that make the country indispensable despite its modest military size. Dutch expertise in air defense systems, naval operations, and peacekeeping missions create strategic value that amplifies the country's voice in alliance decisions. The Netherlands hosts NATO training facilities and provides specialized equipment for alliance operations, establishing relationships that give Dutch officials influence over alliance strategy and resource allocation decisions. Economic leverage translates directly into diplomatic power through trade relationships that make larger countries dependent on Dutch expertise and infrastructure. Recent trade negotiations demonstrate how the Netherlands uses its position as Europe's logistics hub to influence policy decisions across the continent. When the European Union negotiated new trade agreements with Asia-Pacific countries, Dutch officials leveraged Rotterdam's essential role in European trade flows to shape provisions related to shipping standards, port access, and logistics regulations. These negotiations showcase how economic choke points can provide small countries with outsized influence over international agreements that affect global commerce patterns. The Netherlands uses its logistics dominance to influence European policy on climate change and environmental regulations through mechanisms that larger countries cannot easily replicate or circumvent. European Union climate policies must account for the practical realities of implementing carbon reduction measures through existing trade infrastructure, giving the Netherlands substantial influence over how these policies get designed and implemented. Dutch officials regularly participate in EU climate negotiations, not just as representatives of Dutch interests, but as essential technical experts whose approval is necessary for making European climate policies actually functional in practice. The Hague serves as the global center for international justice, hosting institutions that extend Dutch influence into legal frameworks affecting countries worldwide. The International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, and numerous other international legal institutions operate from Dutch territory, creating ongoing relationships between Dutch officials and legal systems across multiple continents. This concentration of international legal institutions provides the Netherlands with soft power that enables influence over global norms and legal precedents affecting human rights, trade disputes, and international conflicts. Dutch expertise in water management provides soft power that enables influence over infrastructure development and climate adaptation policies in countries across multiple continents. Bangladesh, Indonesia, Vietnam, and dozens of other countries regularly consult Dutch experts when designing flood protection systems and coastal defense infrastructure. These consulting relationships create ongoing diplomatic connections that amplify Dutch influence in regions where the country might otherwise have minimal presence. Dutch water management expertise becomes particularly valuable as climate change increases flooding risks worldwide, making countries increasingly dependent on Dutch technical knowledge for protecting their populations and economic infrastructure. ASML's monopoly on advanced semiconductor manufacturing technology provides the Netherlands with leverage over technology policies affecting the world's largest economies. The ongoing competition between the United States and China over semiconductor access requires both superpowers to maintain positive relationships with the Netherlands because alternative sources for the most advanced chip manufacturing equipment simply do not exist. This technological dependency creates situations where Dutch officials find themselves negotiating directly with senior leadership from much larger countries seeking access to critical technology. Controlled by Dutch companies. Strategic partnerships amplify Dutch influence by creating relationships that extend the country's reach far beyond what bilateral diplomacy alone could achieve. The Netherlands participates in international development partnerships that combine Dutch expertise in agriculture, water management, and sustainable technology with resources provided by larger partner countries. These partnerships enable Dutch officials to influence development policies and infrastructure investments in regions across Africa, Asia, and Latin America through collaborative relationships rather than direct bilateral negotiations. Financial markets provide another mechanism through which the Netherlands exercises influence disproportionate to its size through institutions that affect global capital flows and investment decisions. Dutch pension funds manage assets that exceed the gross domestic product of most countries, giving Dutch financial institutions voting power in corporate governance decisions affecting multinational companies worldwide. Amsterdam's role as a major financial center following Brexit creates additional opportunities for Dutch officials to influence European financial regulations and international banking standards. The Netherlands turned constraints into competitive systems across agriculture, logistics, technology, and water management to punch well above its weight class. Climate change and geopolitical tensions represent the top threats demanding sustained innovation in water management and semiconductors. Maintaining this influence requires investing in climate adaptation exports, preserving technological trade leadership, and sustaining urban innovation advantages. The question remains whether this outsized influence stems from replicable strategies or represents something more fundamental about how the Netherlands approaches competition and cooperation on the global stage. The secret formula. Understanding these patterns reveals the fundamental mechanisms behind Dutch success across multiple sectors. The Netherlands achieves its overpowered status through systematic innovation and strategic thinking that transforms every apparent disadvantage into a competitive advantage. While other countries rely on vast natural resources or large populations to generate global influence, the Dutch have created a different model entirely. They maximize output from minimal inputs through approaches that other nations find difficult to replicate because Dutch success stems from integrated systems rather than individual capabilities. Cultural factors provide the foundation for Dutch efficiency and innovation with an extremely constrained geographic space. Cooperation, pragmatism, and long-term thinking characterize Dutch approaches to problem-solving in ways that enable remarkable achievements despite limited resources. Dutch culture emphasizes consensus building and collaborative decision-making that allows the country to pursue long-term strategies without the political disruptions that plague many other democracies. This cultural commitment to pragmatic solutions over ideological positions enables Dutch institutions to adapt quickly to changing circumstances while maintaining consistent strategic direction across multiple decades. The Dutch approach to balancing individual achievement with collective benefit creates social cohesion that supports ambitious infrastructure projects and institutional investments. Dutch citizens generally accept higher tax rates and stricter regulations because they observe tangible benefits from government investments in education, infrastructure, and strategic industries. This social contract enables long-term planning and sustained investment in capabilities that generate competitive advantages over time rather than immediate political benefits for current leadership. Throughout history, the Netherlands has consistently transformed geographic disadvantages into competitive advantages through systematic engineering and institutional innovation. The challenge of living below sea level created water management expertise that now generates billions of euros in export revenue. Limited farmland prompted agricultural innovations that made the Netherlands the world's second largest food exporter. Lack of natural resources forced the development of logistics and trading capabilities that now dominate European commerce. Each geographic constraint became an opportunity for innovation that created sustainable competitive advantages. The Dutch reclamation of over 20% of their current land area from the sea demonstrates how geographic challenges can become sources of competitive advantage when approached with systematic engineering and long-term commitment. This land reclamation expertise now gets exported worldwide as coastal cities face rising sea levels and increased flooding risks from climate change. Dutch engineering firms generate substantial revenue from flood protection projects across multiple continents, while establishing long-term relationships with governments and organizations that require ongoing technical support. The Dutch approach to education, research, and development creates self-reinforcing cycles of innovation and economic growth that sustain competitive advantages across multiple sectors. Wageningen University and Research Center represents one example of how Dutch institutions combine academic research with practical applications that generate economic value. This university leads global agricultural science while maintaining close relationships with Dutch agricultural companies that commercialize research breakthroughs into profitable export products. Government policy plays crucial roles in supporting strategic industries while maintaining business-friendly conditions that attract multinational corporations and encourage private sector investment. The Dutch government provides substantial investments in farming subsidies and rural infrastructure development that support agricultural competitiveness. Government incentives for sustainable business practices include tax breaks for investments in green technology and clean energy through programs like the Energy Investment Deduction, which allocated €431 million for energy-efficient investments in 2025. Infrastructure investments and institutional frameworks support the country's outsized influence through systems that create value from strategic positioning rather than natural resource endowments. The Port of Rotterdam exemplifies how infrastructure investments can generate sustained competitive advantages that other countries find difficult to replicate. Rotterdam's extensive connections throughout Europe and robust defenses against sea level rise enable the Dutch to maintain their position as a major trading power despite having no natural advantages for shipping or transportation. The Netherlands has created self-reinforcing cycles where success in one area enables success in others through systematic approaches that maximize synergies between different economic sectors. Agricultural exports utilize the same logistics networks that handle manufactured goods and raw materials from other countries. Water management expertise supports both domestic flood protection and international consulting services. Technological innovations in semiconductor manufacturing create revenue streams that fund continued research and development in other strategic industries. The focus on sustainability has transformed climate change from an existential threat into a significant economic opportunity through innovations that other countries now desperately need as environmental challenges intensify. The Netherlands leads offshore wind energy development with plans to generate 21.5 gigawatts of capacity by 2030. Green hydrogen production receives €500 million in government investment designed to stimulate a €1 billion hydrogen industry that could export clean energy across Europe. Dutch urban planning innovations serve as global models that cities worldwide study and copy for their own improvement initiatives. Amsterdam and Utrecht consistently rank among the world's most livable cities despite population densities that would typically correlate with reduced quality of life. Bicycle infrastructure in these cities moves more people per square meter than car-based transportation systems operating anywhere else in the world. Geographic constraints compelled Dutch innovation. Their integrated systems, from greenhouses to EUV lithography, offer a blueprint for any nation seeking to do the impossible. Whether this formula can withstand the pressures and challenges that have emerged since 2020 requires examining how the Netherlands has adapted to an increasingly complex global environment. The 2025 Reality Check. The Dutch economy demonstrates remarkable resilience through concrete performance metrics that validate their strategic positioning. Real GDP growth reached 1.6% in 2025 according to European Commission projections, outpacing many European competitors despite global economic uncertainty. Agricultural exports climbed to €128.9 billion in 2024, representing a 5% increase that reinforced the Netherlands' position as the world's second-largest food exporter. ASML's market capitalization expanded roughly 5 times since 2019, reaching valuations that represent over one-third of the entire Netherlands' gross domestic product. Rotterdam expanded its container handling capacity while competitors struggled with reduced shipping volumes, demonstrating how strategic infrastructure investments create lasting advantages even during economic turbulence. However, intensifying pressures test Dutch dominance in ways that did not exist 5 years ago. Climate change acceleration poses existential risks to a country where 65% of the territory sits below sea level. Rising sea levels and increasingly powerful storm systems push Dutch flood protection systems beyond their original design parameters. The frequency of extreme weather events has increased substantially, requiring constant upgrades to barriers, pumps, and other infrastructure that protects millions of people. These climate challenges demand enormous financial investments that strain government budgets, while creating uncertainty about long-term sustainability of current population centers. Geopolitical tensions create additional complications that threaten Dutch strategic positioning. The ongoing technological competition between the United States and China forces the Netherlands to navigate conflicting demands from both superpowers seeking access to Dutch semiconductor technology. American pressure to restrict ASML exports to China threatens one of the company's largest markets, potentially reducing revenue that funds continued research and development. Chinese retaliation could target Dutch agricultural exports or logistics operations, demonstrating how small countries become casualties in conflicts between much larger powers. Several countries actively pursue strategies designed to replicate Dutch success and reduce their dependence on Dutch expertise and infrastructure. Singapore invests heavily in port infrastructure specifically designed to compete with Rotterdam for Asian-European trade flows. The Singapore government allocated billions of dollars to expand container handling capacity and develop automated shipping facilities that could challenge Dutch logistics dominance. Singapore's strategic location provides natural advantages for connecting Asian production with European markets, potentially reducing the importance of Dutch ports for global trade flows. Germany pursues renewable energy investments that could threaten Dutch leadership in offshore wind and green hydrogen production. German companies receive substantial government support for developing wind energy technology and hydrogen production capabilities that compete directly with Dutch companies in global markets. The German government committed over 9 billion euros to hydrogen technology development, creating domestic alternatives to Dutch hydrogen exports while building capabilities that could compete with Dutch companies for international projects. China represents perhaps the most significant long-term threat to Dutch technological dominance through massive investments in semiconductor manufacturing that could eventually reduce global dependence on Dutch lithography equipment. Chinese semiconductor companies receive unlimited government funding to develop domestic alternatives to ASML technology, though current Chinese capabilities remain years behind Dutch achievements. The success of Chinese semiconductor development could eliminate one of the Netherlands' most valuable export industries, while reducing Dutch leverage over global technology supply chains. The Netherlands adapts its strategy through targeted investments and policy changes designed to maintain competitive advantages despite intensifying global competition. The Dutch government allocated 500 million euros for green hydrogen investments, designed to stimulate a 1.25 billion euro hydrogen industry that could replace declining natural gas revenues. These hydrogen investments target European energy markets, where Dutch companies can leverage existing logistics infrastructure to distribute clean energy across the continent. Agricultural research investments continue expanding to maintain Dutch leadership in food production technology. Wageningen University receives increased funding for developing crops that can thrive in changing climate conditions while producing higher yields from limited farmland. Dutch agricultural companies invest hundreds of millions of euros annually in research facilities that develop seeds commanding prices over 100,000 euros per kilogram, reflecting the extraordinary value created through advanced breeding techniques. Rotterdam undergoes massive expansion projects designed to maintain its position as Europe's dominant port despite competition from Hamburg, Antwerp, and other facilities. The Princess Amalia Haven expansion adds 4 million containers of annual capacity through construction of 1,825 meters of deep-sea quay designed for the newest generation of ultra-large container vessels. Rotterdam World Gateway provides additional capacity through automated terminals that reduce handling times while increasing overall throughput. The sustainability of current Dutch advantages faces questions as technology and global trade patterns evolve in ways that could reduce the importance of Dutch expertise and infrastructure. Advances in agricultural technology could enable other countries to achieve similar productivity levels without requiring Dutch seeds or expertise. Alternative shipping routes and port facilities could reduce the importance of Rotterdam for global trade flows. Technological breakthroughs in semiconductor manufacturing could eliminate ASML's monopoly position while reducing Dutch influence over global technology supply chains. Current trends suggest the Netherlands will maintain its exceptional status through continued innovation and strategic adaptation, though the margins for error continue shrinking as global competition intensifies. The Dutch model of converting geographic constraints into competitive advantages remains relevant because climate change and resource scarcity create similar challenges for countries worldwide. Whether this approach represents a replicable formula or something uniquely Dutch requires examining what lessons other nations can actually extract from this remarkable success story. The evidence speaks for itself through measurable achievements that continue expanding despite global uncertainty. The Netherlands remains Europe's most overpowered country in 2025 because it has mastered something most nations never achieve, turning every geographic disadvantage into a systematic competitive advantage. While other countries rely on vast territory or abundant resources, the Dutch have proven that strategic thinking, innovation, and efficiency can generate influence that exceeds what size alone should allow. Their model demonstrates that constraints force creativity in ways that abundance never could. As global challenges intensify and resources become scarcer, understanding how the Netherlands maximizes output from minimal inputs becomes essential for any nation seeking sustainable prosperity in an increasingly competitive world.